I met Carrie, my name is Susie. I met Carrie a number of years ago at a writer's conference. And Carrie was working the bookstore. And so every year I would come to the same writer's conference and I would see this very nice, quiet lady who was working the bookstore. And I just thought, oh, she's so wonderful. She comes every year, she works, she, is a wonderful person. And then I got to work with her at that same writers' conference. Carrie and I were part of this board of people who took it over, and it transitioned from one leader to a different leadership. And Carrie and I were on the board together, and I found out she's very nice, but not necessarily quiet. And we had a great time working together. And so I began to know Carrie as a writer when before she'd been the bookstore lady. And so now we're in a writers group together, and I feel very honored to have her in our writers group. It's been a wonderful experience getting to know her writing, getting to see some of these things before they became a book, and now giving birth to a book, which is something that a lot of us like to do or would like to do, but which, as you know or can guess, it's a very, very difficult thing to do, and it's scary, at least for me. You're kind of putting yourself out there, you're putting your heart out there. So it's an amazing accomplishment that we are celebrating today, and I'm so happy that you're here to celebrate with her and with us. So, should we get started?
Yeah, and thank you for bringing it up, because so when you look around, I would say you're going to see a combination of nurses, you're going to see a combination of my writers group, which is funny. I already met somebody who is a nurse and wants to be a writer. I told you we're out there and stuff. And then also I have family members too, and I don't want to embarrass anyone, but my husband's the sound tech guy, sound video tech, and then my daughter is here. My other daughter's coming here later. So just so you know around, I know many of you very personally and professionally, but just so you can kind of put your eyes on my family too as well. So thank you. So yeah, let's get started.
All right. Part of my job is interviewing people. I'm kind of a journalist type of writer, and I was always kind of the question girl in school who raised my hand all the time, and the teachers would say, put your hand down, because I was a girl of a million questions. So today I get to ask Carrie some questions.
I'm so glad I got to vet those through.
Yeah, if I
otherwise it would have been frightening.
I know. It can be. So first, we just want to know what's the story behind Cares, this beautiful book that each of you get a copy of today. Tell us just a little bit about this book.
Yeah, the book is actually came about in 2013. I started sending out bi-monthly devotions for NCFI, Nurses Christian Fellowship International. I'm going to tell you more about that later on today. When I was down in Chile, they really wanted to be able to communicate internationally with all the nurses and kind of let them know what's going on. So I said, hey, I can write devotions, I'll try this out. Well, it was successful and they really liked it, but you know globally, not everyone has great internet access and stuff, so they wanted a compilation of the NCFI Cares to be able in a printed form. So in 2014 I was approached to say, hey, can you make a printed form? So that's exactly what I did. So that's how it kind of started to go from these devotions into something that's printed.
I love to hear the stories of writers and how their work is birthed, because sometimes you'll hear people say it's so hard to be a writer. It's all about rejection, and it's all about trying for years and years and years to get published. And it's really neat to hear your story that there was a need and that they came to you. So that's a wonderful part of that. Tell us, as I was reading through this again last night, the word reflection or reflect shows up often. And so I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about reflections.
Yeah, so unlike the kind of the bi-monthly devotions, devotions are just 250, 300 word little, things that go out and stuff like that. I wanted this to be more because, something more that was not heavy duty like a Bible study, but something that, nurses could do. We're busy. We need something quick and fast and get it done today, efficient. And so I wanted to do a little bit more. So what I did is I took some of the previous devotions and stuff, and then I made them more into reflections. So each one of the reflections in the book has a Bible reading, a response roll questions that asks you, hey, what would you do with this? And then a prayer at the end. And so the combination in the book is 26 ones that were done before. So if you go out and if you've been getting them or you look on my blog, you'll see some of those. And then I came up with 26 new ones that had never been published and stuff. So make it a little bit more reflective, so we just don't study something, but that we actually think about it and meditate on it and ponder about what we're reading and what we're exploring.
Yeah, what a gift as a writer to be able to, basically you're in someone's head and in their heart, talking to them. And that's the feeling I get from this book, is that you're talking to us through this book. I love that. Okay, so something really special about this book that I have never seen in a book before is that on the left side it's in English and the right side it's in some foreign language. So
I don't know what that is either.
I would look at it and think there's something wrong with me because I'm not understanding this. So tell us about that.
Well, yeah, it was something. Originally, how the story goes is when I started sending out those devotions in 2013, a wonderful Latin American nurse would take those devotions and translate them into Spanish and send them throughout Latin America. I mean, that happened right away, and and they would email me back and say, oh, we're translating it. They would even send it to me. So when this came around as a printed, I felt like I had to include Spanish, and when you travel internationally and stuff and stuff, you realize that there are a lot of other languages like Chinese, and in Europe you learn English. In Latin American and Spanish, you don't necessarily do that. It's not, not saying that they don't, but it's a little bit more difficult, or not as popular, maybe I should say. So I felt like if I'm making this printed, I've got to do something to serve all these Latin American nurses who've been so faithful to do it. So that's exactly what I did. So I'm a translator, Martha. You can read about her in the book, who translated this. And what's funny is, I'll add this in. When I was in the Philippines, I met her personally. I'd Skyped with her and things, and she's like, you did get these professionally translated. I'm like, no, it's you. She's like, no. And I'm like, that's all right. And you'll see, I talk about that in the book. Yeah, it's self-published. We go with the flow and stuff like that. So I'm looking forward, because right now I'm in discussions of getting it translated into Chinese. I ran into Li Fin, who's from Taiwan, and want the same format. I think, I'm trying to learn Spanish, and people who usually speak more than one language want to either improve the other language, so it's exciting.
Oh, I did not know that. That's super cool. Okay, so if I was your business manager, I would say, Carrie, why in the heck are you giving books away at your book signing?
Yeah, don't tell my husband. Maybe you should shut it off now. My financial advisor. Yeah. Because these devotions were a ministry to serve other nurses, that was part of what I wanted to do. So I thought, I want money to go back into NCFI Cares, or NCFI, Nurses Christian Fellowship International. So we kept the cost. It's self-published. It was printed through Creative Space. So the whole idea is that then they have a resource. You come, you get something, you can donate. And so that's the whole purpose of the book. It's their book. In some ways, this is a Nurses Christian Fellowship International book. If you do, you can buy the book. It is on Amazon as a Kindle and as a printed book, this book and stuff. And I get about $1 royalties, because Amazon has to make their cut and stuff. But really, the donation that you make today, and this is the way I'll always be doing this, always promoting, goes to NCFI and stuff, and supports nurses around the world and stuff. So that's why it's a free publication.
Now, I have a couple friends who are nurses who are not here today. If I wanted to buy a book or get a book for them today, what would I do?
You could take one.
Okay.
Just take one, and I'll also sign them for you. At the same time, if you run into colleagues and something you want to, you could still buy it and stuff like that. But today, I have some that I've ordered. Please take it, and stuff like that. And I just asked, if you think about it, is you get a free book. This is $5.99 on Amazon, the printed book. Think about that, and then maybe if you thought, well, I'd rather buy this book, take the book and then put the money in the box and support NCFI instead of paying for it. Yeah. Does that make sense?
So I'd encourage you, if someone comes to mind that could use one of these books, to take one, or maybe you'll run across somebody, and you can even give books anonymously. You can put it in someone's little, mailbox, or on their doorstep, or in a lounge somewhere, and it may be just the thing that someone needs to see that day. So tell us, how does a nurse become a writer? Because those are two separate jobs.
They are, trust me. I feel like it's two careers I'm running here, let me tell you. Actually, I kind of wanted to briefly share that, like typical, I think Sandy and I was sharing that when she was in grade school, she wanted to be a writer. And I was the same thing. When I was in middle school, I shared back and forth. I call it novella now, back and forth with a friend of mine. Well, you know, you got busy, you became a mom, I got a career. And then once I started volunteering at the Christian Writers Seminar 20 some odd years ago and got, you know, all these Christian writers around me, I started thinking about it. Thought, I'd like to write something. And of course, I have to say, I think most of us have a novel in there somewhere, you know. And you know, you always think about that, right? Don't we all want to be R.K. Rowling? I do,
yeah.
Or at least her money, her fame, or whatever. But that wasn't what really kind of got into me. I wrote an article to the Journal of Christian Nursing, and it was rejected. I have my rejection stories too. There's some in there and stuff. And so I submitted it, rejected it, and then I tried it again. And you know, when Kathy comes on and talks about the journal and stuff later today, and stuff like that, she'll talk about you know, being a nurse writer. So I started writing articles, and then one thing led to another. I now have a column in the Journal of Christian Nursing, and then I'm doing devotion. So I'd say it's just, as nurses, I will put a plug for that. We naturally have experience and ability to share. And I would say if you're a nurse, you can write something. Pick up a journal, any journal, not just a Christian journal, and see those personal pieces and the knowledge that we have. So it's actually quite an easy transition.
So if somebody here, whether they're a nurse or not, wants to become a writer, what would be a piece of advice for them? What would you tell them?
As a Christian, I would say, first of all, find out what God lays on your heart. That's what did it for me. I always try to tell the story of, I did the Rick Warren book, The Purpose-Driven Life, remember, years ago. And I completed all the 40 pages and stuff, and I found out, which was surprising to me, that I had a passion to encourage people to live out their faith, and especially nurses. You know, there's a devotion in there, or a reflection there called Looking for the One. That's kind of my personal story about kind of what led me to this group and everything. And I thought, wow, I want to really encourage people. It's hard out here sometimes in nursing and in the world and around to live out our faith and to make those decisions and stuff. So from that, I found my passion. So I'd say as a nurse, find your, you know, or as a writer, figure out what you want, what you're passionate about. Stick with it. Don't get discouraged. Even, you know, I'm sure you could tell lots of stories about writers and their piles of rejection letters. You know, there's lots out there. A very Stephen King, you know, and stuff like that, who talks about the rejection letters. Get plugged into a writer's group, writer seminars, learn the craft. It is a craft. It's just like going to a nursing school. You're going to have to learn how to do it. And like I said, don't get discouraged. It took me 10 years. My column's been going since 2010. It's 2016. I started my ministry in 2008. So it hasn't been overnight. It's been coming along, and I would say, I wouldn't even say I'm done yet. It's just been kind of doing this, doing that, doing other things. So figure out what God wants you to write, stick with it, get connected to other writers. Here's Susie, meet her, and Jeanette, and other writers that are, you know, and stuff like that, and then learn it and stick with it.
Yeah, the writers who are here from Writers Group, why don't you raise your hand real quick? And you can ask any of us a question. And we'd love to have you join us if you have something you would like to write, or if you know somebody who needs to be in a writers group and get that support and help. And we laugh a lot and we have fun.
I think what's fun too, and I have to say, from being a nurse, I never thought a critique group would be helpful. It was, you know, when I met first Susie, I know, laugh, ha ha ha, because how helpful are they now, right? They're very helpful. And so, because I thought, what can they do? I'm a nurse, I write stuff. It's actually great. I would say there's so many different devotions and plays. We did screenplays and books and blogs and articles. Children's book, we have a couple children's writers in our group. So just get plugged in, start seeing it, start writing, and they're very helpful.
And the $1 million question that everyone wants to know is, what are you working on now?
I told you not to ask that question.
It's right on my little piece of paper.
No, I sent you the new one. No, actually, this was supposed to be questions from the audience.
Okay. Anybody want to know what she's working on?
Wait a minute. My daughter, what is she working on? Actually, the reason I was trying to avoid that question is I was telling Susie I'm percolating. She gave it to me. She goes, Carrie, because one time I sat with her and said, I don't know what to write, And I got these two ideas. So really, I'm in between two projects. Number one, I've thought about courage in nursing, and I've actually talked to another daughter of mine who is a nurse and stuff, and talked about that. I think it takes a lot of courage to be in nursing. And the other one is suffering. I don't know, it's just something that's come up. So I'm just kind of taking notes, doing a lot of reading, exploring, stuff like that, and just seeing what God has planned. I'm trying to get through this book launch and stuff first, and start my job again, and things like that. So then we'll see what kind of comes to the top.
Does anybody have any questions for Carrie about this book in particular, or about writing, or about I want to call it the society, but it's not.
Yeah, I'll talk more about NCFI later, and most definitely you can ask questions.
Yeah, any questions about the book, writing, anything like that?
That's okay. You can come and ask me personally. Most definitely, I'm open, and we've put a whiteboard over there up to where if you want your email address shared with the group, put your name and your email up there, and then we'll take a picture of it later, and you can save it. So by all means, take my email. And there's a sign up for the NCF group and stuff there. So that's okay. Actually, we're gonna take a quick break, and then we're changing our agenda a little bit today. And we're going to have Kathy Schoonover-Schaffner, who's going to come and Zoom with us. And she's here. I think I see her. I don't know if she can see me. Hi, Kathy. Yeah, there she is. She's here. She's live. And so she's waiting to talk to you about Versus Christian Fellowship and the journal. So we'll take like about a 5-10 minute break, give you time, get some more coffee, get more food.